What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel. It is time to give you the top 10 most underrated teams heading into the 2025 college football season. So basically, when we talk about top 10 underrated, that means that are teams that are getting maybe some high expectations and then some teams that are getting slept on a little bit in 2025 with all the production they have coming back. They're not even a team that's getting talked about, so that's kind of what it's based off of. And this is kind of personally my expectations for these teams, but I'll go ahead and tell you there are definitely some underrated teams out there. There definitely could be more than 10, but this is just my list and everything. Now, I personally don't feel confident with this top 10 list. I'll go ahead and say that right now, but we'll do the opposite tomorrow as well. We got the top 10 underrated teams for today, and then tomorrow I'll give you the top 10 most overrated teams heading into 2025 as we are closing out this week. And then next Monday, right after Mother's Day, we're going to be starting our official predictions for college football. So keep that in mind, but we're going to get into the top 10 most underrated teams heading into 2025. So let's start here from the bottom and work our way to the top, starting with number 10, and that's going to be the Baylor Bears, a sneaky, Big 12 team that went 8-5 last year in 2024. This is a Baylor team that everybody's not really talking about. I personally had them both in my way too early top 25 and then also my spring top 25 from last Friday. So, yeah, this Baylor team, they have a lot of experience coming back on both sides of the football. I like what they've added in the transfer portal. This is definitely a team to keep an eye on, and I think they're definitely a dark horse team in the Big 12. This is definitely a team that really can make a big jump this year. I know they were 8-5 last year. That doesn't mean they can drop off and everything. That means they can have another successful year. And this Baylor team, I feel like they were not going to be really good last year, but last year they proved me wrong, and they were definitely a surprise team in 2024. This year, I think they're definitely underrated in my opinion, and that's what puts them here in this top 10 list. So that is number 10, Baylor at number 10 on this countdown. Number 9 is Auburn. So I really didn't know who to put at number 9 on this list. I decided to go with the Auburn Tigers, though. This is a team that, definitely has not lived up to the expectations in like the last couple years under Hugh Freeze. Heading into his third year, though, this could probably be a year where Auburn makes a little bit of a jump. I don't want to go too far saying they're going to make a very big jump, like to make it to the playoff or like the SEC championship or anything like that. They do have another tough schedule this year in 2025. Basically, they're going to play Alabama and they're going to be playing Alabama and also Georgia every year, but they get those two games at home. If they at least get, one of those wins, then Auburn can make a really big, not really a big jump, but definitely a little bit of a jump, and this team can make it to a bowl game. Now, they made it to a bowl game in Hugh Freeze's first year, but, last year was definitely a disappointing year. 5-7 year for them. The quarterback position was definitely the inconsistency. They had in Jackson Arnold at quarterback from Oklahoma. I think he fits well into this system. He's a former 5-star recruit, and yeah, I think he's going to probably do pretty solid for them at that quarterback spot. So this is an Auburn team that should be pretty good on both sides of the football, especially that offense. I think this offense has a chance to have a better successful offense in the last couple of years. I think they can definitely make a little bit of a jump. Again, I don't want to go too far with Auburn, but I feel like this team is definitely a little bit underrated heading into 2025. Again, it was really difficult to kind of put a team here at that number 9 spot, but let's go on to number 8 now. And that is BYU. This is a team that I feel like should have been in the playoff last year and definitely also in the Big 12 championship. Last year they were 11-2. They definitely proved me wrong. I was kind of expecting BYU to not be really good last year. I was kind of expecting them to be at the bottom of the Big 12, but look at what they did. They proved me wrong last year, and I think they can definitely do that again this season, but I have high expectations for BYU. They have Jake Ratcliffe back at quarterback. They also have a ton of guys coming back over on the offensive side of the football. And this offense right here, this could be one of the best offenses in the Big 12. If their defense can come along, then this BYU team definitely is a playoff contender. They're definitely a top contender in the Big 12, along with Arizona State and some other teams in that conference. There's a lot of priority in that conference, and I think BYU definitely is in that conversation for 2025. So don't sleep on this BYU team in 2025. Again, this is a team that I feel like should have been in the playoff last year and definitely also in the Big 12 championship. And who knows, maybe they would have had a really competitive game against Arizona State. It probably would have been a close game if both of those teams met once again. And they had a couple of losses last year to some really, Kansas game was definitely a bad loss for them, but the loss to Arizona State was one of their big losses. Not one of their big losses, but definitely their good losses. So yeah, BYU at number 8, this is definitely a team to keep an eye on in 2025. Moving on to number 7, the Florida Gators, a team that really finished the season strong last year, going 8-5 overall. They won their bowl game last year as well, the Gators. This is a team that I feel like was overrated last year, but last year they were definitely underrated. We saw the freshman DJ Lagway come in and provide a spark for this Florida offense, and that defense, was really solid for them last year. We kind of expect this defense to be once again pretty solid, but that offense with DJ Lagway taking over at quarterback, that really provides a spark for this team. So yeah, Billy Napier's got this Florida team. It looks like it's trending in the right direction. I know a lot of people are saying that Florida is definitely overrated, but you look at this team, they don't really lose a whole lot from last year. Offensively, they got almost everybody coming back. They lose a couple of really good wide receivers, but that's really about it. So yeah, this Florida team, they definitely are a top 25 team. They were in my way too early top 25 back in the month of January. And then last weekend, they were also in my spring football top 25. So this team is definitely underrated in my opinion heading into 2025, and that's what landed them on number 7 on this list. Moving on to number 6, that's Michigan. Michigan, the Wolverines come in at number 6. Similar team to Florida. This is a team that got off to a really slow start in the beginning of the year last season. A lot of people were not really talking about this Michigan team. It seemed like a lot of people kind of forgot about them after they won the national championship a couple years ago. But after that, Michigan, it was definitely a step back for them. They were definitely overrated last year, but they still finished the season strong. You go back to that Ohio State game in the month of November where they, absolutely, beat them like, 4 years in a row now. Yeah, the physicality of this Michigan team is definitely underrated in my opinion, and they're just well coached, and that really goes to the case here for 2025. This year, the roster is there for them. The talent is there for them. It looks like they have a passing game now because Bryce Underwood comes in, the true freshman quarterback. We'll see if he can live up to the hype this year in 2025 as well. But yeah, this Michigan team, I think they're definitely underrated. I think this is a top 25 team, and who knows? Maybe they can be a playoff contender, and they also can make it to the Big Ten championship again. They're definitely back to being like a top contender in the conference in the Big Ten as well. So yeah, Michigan at number 6 on this list. I kind of expect them to make a little bit of a jump this year, and you never know. They might beat Ohio State for the 5th consecutive year in a row now. How crazy would that be if Michigan does it again? And they get the Buckeyes at home this year. But Michigan at number 6, let's go to the top 5 now. In my opinion, the top 5 teams right here that you're going to see are definitely very underrated, besides those teams from 6 through 10. But we got LSU at number 5. This is a team that I think everybody is sleeping on in the SEC for 2025. Yes, they were 9-4 last year. That was definitely a disappointing year for LSU. They were definitely overrated last year, but this year I think they're definitely underrated. You look at this team, Garrett Nussmeier is back at quarterback offensively. Yeah, the offensive line looks like it's going to be a concern, but with the additions that they've added in the transfer portal, that's pretty much why I got LSU here in the top 5, to be honest. This LSU team definitely is a playoff contender in my opinion. I don't know if they'll be like a SEC championship contender, but you never know. They might surprise a lot of people this year with all the transfers they brought in. Again, that offensive line will be a question mark, but they got plenty of weapons on both sides of the football. And that defense, I think that defense is probably going to make a jump this year. Last year's defense made some progress. This year's defense could definitely make an even more bigger progress. And yeah, Harold Perkins is also back at linebacker. That's the big story there on the defensive side of the football. And they also added a ton of transfers there on that side of the football as well. So I like this LSU team a lot. I'm really high on this LSU team for 2025. And because of that reason, they do land at number 5 here on this top 10 underrated list. Again, this is an LSU team that you don't want to sleep on in 2025. And that's why they landed here at number 5 on this list. list. Moving on to number 4, we got Illinois, a team that was definitely very underrated last year. A lot of people kind of expected Illinois to be the worst team in the Big Ten, maybe like the second or, maybe the second to last worst team in the Big Ten, but they ended up going 10-3, and this is a team that definitely is underrated once again in 2025. They have a lot of production coming back on both sides of the football. Luke Allmeyer returns at quarterback, a very underrated quarterback in my opinion. So yeah, Illinois definitely is a top 5 underrated team in my opinion. This is a team that I've had in my top 15 in the top 25 rankings for both the winter and then also the springtime. So yeah, I like this Illinois team to become like a dark horse team in the Big Ten. You also got Indiana in that conversation, which they're not on this list, but they were definitely on the list last year, and they definitely turned out to be underrated. This Illinois team, they're definitely underrated in my opinion. Again, with all the returning production they have coming back on both sides of the football, that's how they landed at number 4 here on this list. So Illinois at number 4. Let's move on to number 3, and that is Texas Tech out of the Big 12. So I know a lot of people are going to say, why is Texas Tech on this list? Well, because of what they returned coming back from last year. This is a Texas Tech team that returns a lot of players from last year. The Red Raiders in 2025, they added a ton of additions in the transfer portal, and I like the way the schedule sets up for them. They do have a schedule that sets up pretty well for them to have a pretty good chance to be a dark horse team in the Big 12. I thought about putting this team in the way too early top 25 in January and then also in the spring from last Friday, but I didn't have enough room to put him in there. So yeah, the Texas Tech Raiders, they could be my preseason top 25 by the time we get to the month of August. This team, again, they have a lot of returning production from last year, and this is a well-coached team. This is a Texas Tech team that is very consistent as a program in the history of the Big 12, and like Baylor, they were kind of a sneaky good team in the conference as well. So definitely watch out for the Red Raiders in 2025. They definitely could be a sneaky good team and definitely a top 25 team. And definitely a very underrated team heading into 2025 as well. So Texas Tech at number 3. We stay in the Big 12 at number 2, and that is going to be Arizona State. Arizona State last year definitely proved me wrong. I wasn't expecting this team to be really good last season, and look at what they did. They were 11-3 last year. They went to the Big 12 championship, of course, won it all in the Big 12 in their first year, and they also made the playoff, and they were absolutely competitive against Texas in the semifinal game. Yeah, they lost that game, or I should say the quarterfinal game. They were competitive in that game. They lost that game by 1 possession. I would have probably been shocked if Arizona State beat Texas, by the way. But yeah, this Arizona State team, yes, they lose Cam Scadaboo at running back. A lot of people think the Sun Devils are going to drop off, but I don't think so. They have a lot of production coming back. Sam Levitt is back at quarterback. This is a team that definitely still can make a big jump, and I wouldn't be surprised if they become the favorite in the Big 12 again. And they also have a chance to make the college football playoff again as well. So yeah, Arizona State, I mean, there's a lot of good teams in the Big 12. You got Iowa State and Kansas State both, but I think Arizona State, BYU are probably your top contenders, but I would definitely, put Iowa State and Kansas State in that conversation as well. But there's a lot of priority in that conference. But yeah, Arizona State, they pretty much almost dominated the conference from last year, but still, this is an Arizona State team I don't think is going to take a big drop from last year. They're definitely going to be a top contender in the Big 12, so that's how they landed at number 2 on this list. But we go to number 1 now, the most underrated team heading into 2025, in my opinion. That's going to be the Clemson Tigers. Clemson is the most underrated team heading into 2025. First off, you look at both sides of the football. There's pretty much talent everywhere on both sides of the football. There's plenty of experience as well, and that's the thing about this Clemson team. A lot of experience coming back for the Tigers in 2025. You got Cade Klubnik back at quarterback, Dabo Swinney. This might be the most talented Clemson team that he's had in pretty much in a long time, and this is probably the most experienced Clemson team that he's had in a long time as well. So with that being said, Clemson definitely probably the favorite in the ACC because of that, and they could probably be the team that represents this conference. But again, you never know. The ACC is definitely a conference with a lot of priority as well, but I like this Clemson team a lot. I think they're going to be definitely successful this year. You expect that offense to be very explosive under Garrett Riley, how it was from last year, and we saw a lot about a big jump from Cade Klubnik at quarterback. And defensively, you got Tom Allen, the defensive coordinator, coming from Penn State. We saw how good that defense was for the Nittany Lions from last year, and that definitely could transition here to Clemson for 2025. So with the most production coming back in the country in all of college football, and definitely the favorite in the ACC, and a team that definitely is, that made the playoff last year and definitely make it to the playoff this year, this is definitely a top 5 team and definitely a top 10 team in my opinion, and I think they definitely deserve to be here at number 1 as being the top 10 or the number 1 most underrated team heading into 2025. So those are my top 10 most underrated teams heading into the 2025 college football season. Don't forget, we'll have the top 10 most overrated teams heading into 2025 coming out tomorrow. Stay tuned for that video. Thank you for watching this video. Let me guys know what you think about my list, and give me your top 10 underrated teams heading into 2025 as well. Thanks for watching this video, and stay tuned for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports YouTube channel.